Alrighty. Looks like the mic is coming through nice and clear as I look at the little green bar scrolling around down there. Let's dial that up just a little bit. Not too much. There we go. I've got the AC turned off behind me, so hopefully it won't get too warm in here as we're chatting. Yeah, HD hotel internet. Hello, good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining me. If you're watching this live, thanks for coming and hanging out. If you're watching this later on YouTube, I appreciate it. But yeah, I mentioned it on the Pathfinders on, was that Saturday night? Yeah. So I found a hidden Cat5 Ethernet port behind the dresser over there, and then I acquired some Ethernet cable, and once my dock for my laptop got here, I was able to plug into it, and the speeds are like as good as my cable internet back home, like anywhere from like 5 to 750 down, 3 to 500 up, crazy speeds. And it's like, oh, great. I've got, super fast internet and I'm still working off of a laptop. But anyway, this is another installment of Lore Equals Gameplay. I think I'm up to 12 now. I don't remember. I'd have to go back and look on my YouTube and see which episode this is. And tonight I'm going over the, pardon me, the May 30th Galactapedia update. Maury, good to see you, 07. How you doing? And hey, Victoria, how you doing? Yep, I'm wearing the army green shirt. Yeah, I'm. If it's been a little bit since you've hung out in chat or watched an episode, I'm still doing army stuff. I've got 11 more days until I get to finally go home. Graduate from this course on the 16th, so I'm looking forward to being done. Tired of living in a hotel, ready to be home with my family. But yeah, I mean, it's really good training, really good experience, and a lot of the clinical stuff is refresher. But yeah, you don't get the opportunity that often on the civilian side to do this much high fidelity simulation training. So it's really good. It's just being away from home for this long is pretty hard. Yeah, it gets old after the first or second week. No joke, especially living in a hotel. And, it's like, yeah, I was a young infantry marine a long time ago, so I've lived in much worse conditions. But at the same time, it's like, I have a house and a wife and a kid, and my dogs. And, I'm a National Guardsman. I'm not active duty anymore. I don't want to be doing the full-time Army life. Is I want to avoid it as much as possible. But yeah, I'm down here at Fort Novacell in southern Alabama. Used to be Fort Rucker, doing a whole bunch of flight paramedic training. So it's good stuff. Like today we had a big old lecture and a whole skills lab for treating military working dogs. Super cool. Like, if you don't like dogs, what's wrong? A, what's wrong with you? But B, it's good to be able to get the, training and education. Have a military working dog vet come by and talk to us all about their anatomy and their physiology, how they respond to injuries, how to assess them appropriately, how to provide treatment, until we can get them back to, a higher level of care if something happens to them. So like, I'm a huge dog lover, so I'm all about, okay, if, I'm ever in the situation where I have to take care of an injured military working dog, I want to be prepared. So it's good stuff. But yeah, so this evening, going over the May 30th Galactapedia update, it's a chunky one. There's actually, it's been a couple of months since they've had 2 star systems worth of articles in the Galactapedia update. And yeah, the Ark Starmap is still giving issues, but I remember to do it this time ahead of time. I have one of the earlier scanner anomalies that I did for Pathfinders is I made a spreadsheet of all the sizes of the different star systems on the Ark Starmap and how those sizes compare with what is on Ark Starmap versus the SC Tools wiki. And there's still a lot of differences, and I should go in and make those changes. But so I had that up so that way when we look at these systems, and we'll be able to know what the accurate sizes of them are. But yeah, we'll read those articles and pardon me. we'll use the star map to just sort of orient ourselves to where this lore is occurring geographically within Star Citizen. We'll talk about how the lore is going to potentially impact your gameplay. Do a little bit of theory crafting coupled with things that we already know about, and tie the two together. Why is the narrative team talking about specific things in regards to lore? What does that how does that impact the gameplay that we'll have in the game? Not just some of the lore articles are just interesting stories about people and characters. They add depth to the universe, but a lot of the location based stuff for the Galactapedia entries is very illuminating into what sort of shenanigans we might be getting into in certain corners of the verse. Before we get started, just want to remind everyone, if you're watching live now or watching later on YouTube, everything I do content creation wise is charity driven. So I take no money from anything related to content creation, whether it's from YouTube or Twitch. We are like right at almost 950 subscribers on YouTube, so we are getting really close to the 1,000 gold that I need to get monetized over there. Ghost just renewed his subscription, so I really appreciate that, renewing the sub on Twitch. But if you sub on Twitch because you hate commercials like me, if you deal with commercials, the ad revenue, all that I donate directly to stackup.org. Obviously, it's a cause I believe in because here I am, a veteran and military gamer, and I believe in the power of gaming to treat PTSD and help people like me deal with what I'm dealing with right now, being away from my home and my family and my support group. Luckily I'm not overseas doing it, but the thought remains. Always, if you are feeling generous, so we always really appreciate direct donations, either via the link in chat or the donation thing that's on the Twitch page. Like if you're watching on PC right now, there's a little donate or charity button thing. I forget what it looks like. We been a little bit distracted with all the Army stuff. Been a little bit busy, so haven't been streaming or doing as much content creation. We are, when I did all the math, we were right around $900 to the $1,000 goal all total. When you talk about direct donations via Twitch, direct donations via the chat link, and then me donating the monetization that I get from Twitch from subs and ad revenue. So pretty cool stuff. We're definitely going to be over $1,000 before the end of this year, well past that, I'm sure. And we'll be able to sponsor a loot crate for some lucky member of the military, and help take care of them, take care of their squad, help them, get through deployment, get through being, help boost their morale a little bit. So let's get right into the lore. Real quick, I got to switch screens so you guys can see what I'm looking at. Let me make sure the right screen is up before I do that. And, wrong one. It's a good thing I did that. Okay. And you'll have to bear with me because I'm, just, tabbing through different windows because I only have the one screen right here in front of me, and I have, the stream over here on my left on the tablet, so that way I can more easily, write anything or type anything in chat. But all right, we've got it loaded up and transitioning in 3, 2, 1. Bingo. Alrighty. Okay, so let's get into it. All right, so this Galactapedia update for May came out on May 30th, which was my 39th birthday. Old. And it's always funny because they forget to update this part as well. But if you're unfamiliar with the Ark, pardon me, the Ark has a whole bunch of lore surrounding it. The Ark is actually meant to be a in-game, real in-lore repository of information. Think of it like a giant intergalactic library where, all races and people are free to submit information, for the benefit of all. Hey, Shori, good to see you. How you doing? So yeah, the Ark is this massive space station in the Tayak system. The Tayak system is a, is it in neutral system? Let's look real quick. I can't remember. Whoops, wrong button. Let's see. Tayak is over here somewhere, if I remember correctly. We have to be gentle with the star map so that it doesn't do something weird that we don't want it to. There it is, right there. So here's the Tayak system down here. It's only just a jump away from Terra. How convenient! But it's also connected to Goss and Baker. But that is the home of the Ark. That's why the Ark Starmap is called the Ark, because the map of the known verse is stored there, and all information about these places is stored there. Go says, Library of Alexandria. Yeah, that's a perfect example. It's supposed to be close to Banu Xi'an territory. Yep, right there. And so, I guess it is a UE controlled system, but I guess they offer free passage there. And then over here is the Xi'an, and then the Banu are actually down here. And actually, while I'm thinking about it, I want to pose a question to you guys, and that way you can take it back to your, other communities you participate in. I actually made a post about this on Spectrum a long time back. I asked Sherry Heiberg, the archivist. I was like, "Hey, what's the deal with this system?" Treese is the the system where the Banu version of Mecca is. They have a holy planet there with a whole bunch of temples and stuff, and they make pilgrimages. And it's apparently has a lot of influence on their culture. Obviously, Paul knows a whole lot more about this, or Algrid, but it's a really interesting place. But it's, for some reason on the star map, Treese is over here in the middle of Xi'an territory on the complete opposite side of the verse from the Banu systems. So I thought that was kind of weird. So I don't know if that's supposed to be like that or what. But something interesting to think about, because I've read the lore article about Treese, multiple times just to see if there's any sort of hint as to why, and haven't been able to find anything, never got a response. So interesting. Pardon me. So the Ark Tayak system. Welcome to this month's Galactapedia Update Roundup. This month we visit the Kellogg and Osiris systems, meet a few groundbreaking explorers, and learn about the life of Magda Hurston. Join the Spectrum thread for any discussion or feedback. Actually, I'm going to open that up as well, just in case there's any. Sometimes there's replies from Sherry to people posing questions or any changes that need to happen. So let's read this article about Magda Hurston, and then we'll get into the short articles that are more about other people and some of the star systems. So Magda Hurston, 2833 to 2921, was the CEO of Hurston Dynamics from 2883, so she was 50 years old when she took over as CEO, to 2915. So she was CEO for 32 years. And she lived for 6 more years after she stepped down from the position of CEO. Pardon me. It was her initiative that led to the company to purchase Stanton 1 from the UEE in 2865. So, let's see. Oh, okay. So she wasn't the CEO then, but her influence is what caused them to do that. The third moon of Hurston is named in her honor. She was succeeded as CEO by her son, Gavin E. Hurston. The oldest child of Chesterfield Hurston and Mariah Park Hurston. Magda was born in 2833 on Rytiff, which is Bremen 2, at a hospital near the site of Hurston Dynamics' secondary headquarters. So they, Hurston had either has or had a secondary headquarters on Rytiff in the Bremen system. Bremen being very much a breadbasket system. She received her early education on Earth, Sol 3, and attended the Haymore School of Economics in Geneva for her undergraduate and graduate degrees, where she attained a Master of Science in Organizational and Social Psychology.
What? Did we just become best friends? Yup!
Oh, Access, thanks so much for the sub. Really appreciate you, bud. Good to see you this evening. How you doing? I heard the sound in my head and I saw the GIF on the screen, so I'm assuming it worked. But yeah, thanks so much for the support. Really appreciate you. Good to see you this evening. Let's see. So her dissertation, Live, Work, and Play, Employee Productivity in Controlled Environments, was selected as one of the winners of the Best Dissertation Prize for the 2854-2855 academic year. There's no way that there was any sort of nepotism influence going on there. But at the same time, she has a graduate, an undergrad and a graduate degree in things very relative to business. So it's very apparent that the Hurstons do value education for at least their people. Good enough for me, but not for thee. But there's a lot of grooming going on within the Hurston family in order to make sure that it isn't just they're not passing on the reins to incompetent leaders. They don't want to ruin the family legacy by passing on leadership within the company or leadership positions within the company to people who aren't competent. So they make sure that they're educated and trained and have the experience. So after she won the Best Dissertation Prize for the 2854-2855 academic year, so she was 22 years old at the time, she went on a year-long internship at the University of Persay Analytical Research and Quantification on Persay, Rhetor 2, so UPark. UPark is... I think that's the one, if I remember correctly, that's kind of like the, what's the U.S., the DARPA. It's kind of like the UE version of DARPA. A lot of defense-oriented research going on there, and that makes a lot of sense because the Hurstons are very involved in defense projects with the UE military, and they're a big weapons manufacturer. She joined the family business in 2856, starting as an associate operations analyst. So she had to work down in the trenches as an analyst within the company. She didn't just get you were going to be assistant director or associate director or this or that. Axis says just played an hour and a half of GPO2. GPO2. What's GPO2 on Steam? Yes, it goes. Slayer Cannon has some space magic in it. Grumble, grumble. So Hurston dynamics. Magda moved upward through the ranks despite several clashes with distant relatives in higher positions. Interesting because there's this goes to show that there is stiff competition within the Hurston family themselves. It's not all buddy rubbing elbows. The competition is probably fostered within the family. Looked at as a healthy but necessary thing in order to make sure that the best and brightest of the Hurstons reach the higher levels of influence and control in the company. Eventually becoming Chief Operations Officer in 2863. During this period, she made multiple cost-saving operational changes to Hurston Dynamics, such as utilizing nutritional supplements instead of fresh ingredients to reduce the cost of employee meals, and opting for in-house production of worker protective equipment in place of renewing expensive outsourcing contracts. Oh, okay. Yeah, I can't imagine how that has negatively impacted the workers of Hurston Dynamics. Nutritional supplements sounds delicious. In 2865, she spearheaded her largest project, the purchase of governing interest and settlement rights for the naturally habitable planet Stanton 1 and its 4 moons from the UEE. It was under her advice that then CEO Chesterfield Hurston, her dad, agreed to the unprecedented expense. The changes they could make to the weapon manufacturing process out from under the strict laws of the UEE would save the company trillions. Chesterfield approved, and the Planet Hurston was officially established. Can only imagine what sort of environmentally unfriendly shortcuts they take on their own planet, and how that negatively impacts the planet, and what potential downstream ramifications there could be for those decisions in the future. While Hurston Dynamics' mining division broke ground on antimatter precursor mines on the surface of Hurston, Magda supervised the design and construction of the first residential buildings that would later form the heart of the workers' district. She took a brief break in 2867 after the birth of her son Gavin. When Hurston's first antimatter refinery plant was completed in 2872 and workers began to arrive, the need for a much larger settlement became apparent. Magda spent 5 years identifying areas to cut costs so that new construction could be built quickly and at low price. The city of Lorville was officially founded in 2877. So let's see, that's 23 years plus 53 years, so 76 years ago. In 2883, halfway through, let's see, Ghost said, "You don't need to imagine. I got some acid flats to show you." Let's see. In 2883, halfway through the erection of Central Tower, Hurston Dynamics' new headquarters, Chesterfield died after a short battle with pancreatic cancer. Magda succeeded him as CEO. Under her leadership, daily work hours were extended for those under the life labor contract. Magda is ruthless, and a weekly task completion competition to shorten workday minutes was introduced. These changes. Your work hours are extended, but if you get your tasks done, you are able to, get off early. These changes improved overall efficiency by 3%. Whoa! She oversaw the completion of Central in 2890, as well as a wide expansion of the company's antimatter mining, processing, and weapons construction. The contract she signed to provide the UE military with antimatter warheads netted record profits. She continued her father's strip mining operations, exempt from the UE's anti-pollution laws, thanks to the planet's independent status, allowing speedy and cheap extraction of Hurston's natural resources. She retired as CEO in 2915 and was succeeded by her son Gavin, though she stayed on the board of Hurston Dynamics in an advisory capacity. It'd be interesting to see if, later on in the lifetime and the development of Star Citizen, if the strip mining of Hurston and Hurston's resources ever reaches a terminus, where they've been so aggressive with their mining in order to meet production quotas and stuff that the Hurston itself is running out of the resources that the company needs in order to make the weapons and stuff that they build, and if that has an impact on the company as well as the people that work for the company, because then if they can't get resources from the planet anymore because it's been strip mined, and they have to start importing resources again for their production, what would that, how would that impact their bottom line, and what would Hurston leadership do then in order to have that not negatively impact their profits? Because it's not something, this isn't something that continue, into perpetuity. The planet only has so many resources. Where the biosphere collapses has to be close, given the lore they need oxygen masks. Yeah, and, what changes would have to be made to the city in order to make the city still livable? It's something that I thought about, how long can Hurston? They're having all sorts of profits and stuff, but what are they doing with that money in order to maintain viability in the long term? Because they can only exploit the planet for so long. There's only so many resources that they can use in order to do what it is that they do. Death. While en route from the Hurston Central building to Tisa Spaceport, where she was planning to travel via a private service to her family's vacation home on Castle, Goss 2, her shuttle suffered a mid-flight collision with another shuttle. She and 6 other people died in the crash. I wonder if it was actually an accident. What do you think? Ooh woo. Power to the people. So that's all we have for Magda Hurston. And we'll real quick, let's take a look at, these are all the, let's see if there's any replies. Usually I'll get a notification in my Discord if there's been any. Okay, so typo there. Okay, cool. Nothing there. So let's close that. Alrighty, so now we're going to get into the Galactapedia portion, starting off with the Kellogg system. So let's open that up. So the Kellogg system is a really, really interesting system to me. I also think it's one of the systems that could potentially be on the development docket, not in the not too distant future, just due to its proximity to systems that are known to be in development right now or will be in development in the future. So here we are in Stanton over here. Here's Pyro, soon TM. Nyx, which has been said to be the next star system to go into development right there. The Odin system, which we know features prominently in Squadron 42. And here's Kellogg right next door to it. So Kellogg being a developed system, but it's connected by a large jump point to the Odin system, which is connected by a large jump point to Nyx. But Kellogg is also connected by a large jump point to Kronos, which is where Synthworld is. In Synthworld, or Kronos has the only jump point. Is that a small? No, it's a medium. To the Branagh system, which is where the Tavaran diaspora is. Branagh's a very interesting system. A lot of interesting stuff going on there. So yeah, here's Kellogg over here, so our route from Kellogg. Or from Stanton to Kellogg is Stanton via medium jump point to Pyro, large jump point to Nyx, large jump point to Odin, large jump point to Kellogg. And you can also see that Kellogg is bordered, has 2 medium jump points to the Vector system, which we know next to nothing about other than it's Vandal controlled, and the Virgil system, which was the last, or second to last, human system to be conquered by the Vandal, the most recent one to be conquered being Caliban over here. So there is Kellogg. So the Kellogg system. Oh, and by the way, here is my spreadsheet, the SC Star System spreadsheet. I will go ahead and actually, here, we'll drop a link to this in chat so you can bookmark it. And with the link can be a viewer. Yep, that's what I want. And 1 second. There you go. Alrighty. And so Kellogg, I've made it so that way you have the system name. Historical names is also included. And under historical names, I also have here's the human name for a Xi'an system, or as well as the Khalif Jalan, the former Tavaran system is done that way as well. Yeah, and ones that changed hands between the from the Xi'an to humanity during the ones the Cold War ended, and then of course here's the the affiliation or what the system type is, and then the size listed on SC Tools, or at least from when I did this last. I think some of them have been updated, but definitely not all of them. And then the size listed on the star map from when you could right-click on the star map to get the size of the system. And then I made it so you can see the size difference. And it's, positive or negative, because some systems have shrank and some have gotten bigger. So and then the name also takes you to the link, has the link in it for the system on SC Tools. So the Kellogg system, developing system, is 33 AU. Now, and again, for reference, Stanton is 5 AU, Pyro is 13, and Nix is 11. So Kellogg is a very big system. Before we get going, I think, I have to search for it. We have to search for Kellogg, and that will take us into the system, since the star map is being super finicky. It's on its last legs, it seems. Hopefully they can get it fixed. All right, so here is the Kellogg system. We'll zoom all the way out. All righty, perfect. There we go. And we'll start here, and then we'll work our way in. So the Kellogg system is a protected planetary system that consists of a G-type main sequence star, 5 terrestrial planets. Earth is a terrestrial planet. And terrestrial doesn't mean that it's habitable or has a breathable atmosphere. It just means that it's geologically like Earth is I guess an easy way to explain it. And one gas, a main sequence star, 5 terrestrial planets, and 1 gas dwarf. Discovered in 2811 by nav jumper Patek Cohen, initial surveys revealed that Kellogg 2 was home to a sapient species, and the system was placed under the protection of the Fair Chance Act. And so if you're not familiar with the Fair Chance Act, it is the UEE Act, law that protects systems, star systems and planets and the species within them if they are sapient or developing. Not just sentient, but sapient. And I always forget what the difference is. Oh, here we can read that probably real quick. Under the protection of the Fair Chance Act. After two jump points to Vandal territory were discovered in 2815, the UE Senate approved a plan submitted by Senator Daniela Argan of Locke, Idris 4, to establish a prison and an antimatter processing facility on Kellogg 6. Frequent visits from bounty hunters and haulers to the planet have made Kellogg the most high-traffic system under FCA. Cromtac, good to see you this evening. How you doing, bud? If you keep this up, you might be Sherry's assistant one day. Dude, if CIG would hire me to do just about anything, and I could make, 2/3 to 3/4 of what I do right now at my full-time job, I would quit medicine in a heartbeat. After COVID, I would be just absolutely tickled to do content creation and nerdy stuff full-time. Rather than be medicine. I enjoy being a soldier. I like what I do. It's very rewarding, but it's also very taxing. It's like, I'm not long for this career path, But I love the lore. I love the story. I love the world building. So that's like a lot of times when I read these articles, a lot of the things that are very poignant when it comes to the gameplay aspect are mentioned towards the second half of the article. Antimatter processing facility, prison, bounty hunt, frequent visits from bounty hunters and haulers. The fact that it's also a developing system. So I think it was the last Galactapedia update, which had the OSO system. And so if you've been following the Galactapedia updates, you'll know that one of the roles for the UE Army, which we know next to nothing about, is actually the protection of developing systems and guarding those protected planets and patrolling those systems. That's part of their remit. I have Octavian. I've never put in an application to CIG. I don't have the requisite skills and experience to do much of anything that CIG would be hiring for. And because they are primarily office-based, and I live in Boise, and there's no way in hell that I'm moving. That just, it's not really in the cards. But, I enjoy doing content creation, and this is fun, and I enjoy it. It's rewarding, and I get to do it for charity, and it's a charity that I really believe in. So that's where I get the satisfaction out of it, and of course, being able to hang out and chat with all you guys, either live here on Twitch or in the comments on YouTube, or if you're in my Discord, that's my, my creative outlet. But yeah, so those are some key hints about things that are prominent within the Kellogg system that might, are gameplay related. So let's look at the rest of these articles. And before we do that, we're going to zoom in a little bit. You can see here's the Justice Star satellite way out here, Kellogg 5, that gas dwarf. And then we can zoom in here. And you can see the... Oh, so that's not... Let me... Oh, well. And interesting enough, you can see that for now, looks like my camera just crashed. Give me 1 second, I'll restart it. Don't know why it does that. That's really weird. Because like the Elgato camera hub didn't crash. It was still working. Just for some reason, like OBS decided to stop reading that it was working and doing its thing. All right, let's see if that did it. Okay, cool. Back up. All right, continuing on. But not every system is like this, and I imagine there will probably be more changes. One of the things when I did that scanner anomaly a while back about the changes to the star systems, not only have the sizes changed, but their jump points have been moved. Jump points have changed size. There have been a couple new ones added. Planets have been moved in their orbits. The diameter of planets and their mass have changed. There's been a lot of different changes that have occurred over the years. But it's interesting because, the system is very large, and yet all the jump points are quite centrally located in the center of the system. Basically, all pretty much, within the diameter of the green band, if you want to call it that, or refer to it that way. Alrighty, so let's close that. Kellogg 1. This one's for the lava lovers. Kellogg 1 is a terrestrial planet in the Fairchance Act protected Kellogg system. The closest world to its sun, Kellogg 1's surface is modeled with oceans of lava. So, lava oceans. Question is it entirely covered with lava, or are there actual rocky masses as well? Its atmosphere is partially composed of vaporized rock, so not breathable, which forms clouds that rain quartz onto its molten surface. A day on Kellogg 1 lasts nearly 3 times as long as its a year. Wow, okay, so it rotates very slowly. There's been some debate, like with systems like this, planets like Kellogg 1, like, why would you ever want to visit that planet? What could you ever want to go to that planet for? And the thing that I can think of, this is a Fair Chance Act system, so you're not going to see industry, here, or legitimate industry here, and so they're probably, even though if you go to a lava planet in a non-Fair Chance Act system, I could see using that planet as a means for certain types of refining, like the lore for Pyro talks about how the flares from the sun are actually used in, are harnessed in ways to augment refining processes. So I could see having locations like a lava planet or other things being utilized for refining, whether maybe they use it for as an, you have a structure that's an energy tap, operated by a Shubin, in order to, have a cheap, efficient method of refining hard to refine materials. Who knows? They could, come up with all sorts of weird lore reasons. But the other thing is always exploration and research. There could be reasons to send like a research probe down there or go down there and scan certain areas, as part of a research expedition, just to get updated scans about the planet and see how it's changing. The astrophysicists, monitor this sort of stuff, and that's those are the things they geek out on, and they get grants to do this sort of research. And so they'll pay you, as an explorer with your terrapin or whatever, to go out and do a scan of an area on a planet like this to monitor changes in the volcanic activity. Who knows? Got to think outside the box sometimes. It's not always as obvious as, bounty hunters bringing bounties to, Kellogg because there's a prison there. Pardon me. Zeiss, origin of the Orm and Flopets. Oh, so here's Kellogg 1, very close to the star. And then here is Zeiss out here in the green band. Zeiss, Kellogg 2, is the second planet from the sun of the Fair Chance Act protected Kellogg system. A biologically diverse, lushly vegetated world, it is home to the developing Orm civilization and is protected by UE Army patrols. Here we are again talking about the UE Army protecting Fair Chance systems, who enforce the FCA. So, one thing that was mentioned when was reading the lore for the OSO system, they talked about how there's some smugglers or something like that were trying to hide. I think it was in a nebula. I can't remember now. I'd have to go back and look at it. But that they were able to hide for several days before UE Army patrol ships found them. So the UE Army is not planet bound. They have, obviously they man stations for defending Fair Chance Act systems, and they probably man stations for the defense of, regular UE systems as well, military stations. But they have their own patrol ships that they use to patrol these sort of systems for the defense of that system. And so my question is, the only lore we have of this is in regard to Fair Chance Act systems. But I wonder if we'll see more mention of the UE Army manning defense stations and platforms in non-Fair Chance Act systems, as well as UE Army patrol ships patrolling UE systems. So that way the Navy is like the offensive arm of the UE military when it comes to the Navy, and even the Marines are really the offensive arm for going out and leaving UE controlled systems to go take the fight to pirates or the Vanduul, whereas the Army stays back in the UE systems and is the protection arm, the defensive arm. Ghost 1800 says, stationing at a backwater system like that is considered a horrible assignment, though. Oh, yeah, I'm sure it's probably less than desirable, and you probably don't have the pick of the litter when it comes to soldiers, defending a backwater system like Kellogg, although Kellogg is on the border with the Vanduul. So, although I've never seen any lore about Vanduul raids into the Kellogg system, but that could be a significant point of for the UE Army as being defensive in nature, is if they have to fight off Vanduul raids into the Kellogg system. Definitely a lot more to be explored for the UE Army. Navy is pretty offensive. Haha. But So deep, multi-canopied for rainforests and warm seas cover much of the planet's surface. This is why this planet, and there's a couple others that are sound very tropical or subtropic, very rainforesty. They're really interesting to me because the way they talk about the vegetation, how thick it is, how lush and deep a rainforest actually is. It makes me wonder, think about how the Planet Tech team and the Planet Content team over at CIG will be able to build a planet that has actual legitimate dense, thick jungles. Because the way that they have described some of these and the different lore stories, there are very few clearings, and it's very difficult to actually get down to the surface, because the jungle is so thick. You can very few places you can actually land a ship, and so it's really interesting to me to think about how you would, whether it's a protected planet like this one or a non-protected planet, how you would go about getting down, and putting boots on the ground, in different areas, because the places you want to go might not be, in clearings. They could be under the canopies, and in areas where they are not accessible by air, or not readily accessible by air. And so you'll have to get dropped off somewhere and go by foot or by ground vehicle, under the jungle canopy. That's the kind of gameplay I think is really interesting to think about, and, lends a lot of credence to my favorite drop ships, the Orm largely reside in the temperate forests of the planet's polar regions. So they don't live in the rainforest. They live in the more closer to the polar regions, more like pine forests. In the early 30th century, several freshwater slugs were smuggled off Zeiss and were sold to collectors under the name flowpets, which led to a fad that ultimately turned the animals into an invasive species on multiple worlds throughout the UEE. So they're kind of like, what's the Tribbles? They're kind of like the Star Citizen equivalent of Tribbles. But there's I forget which serialized fiction. There's a whole series. I'm pretty sure they were talking about the Orm, or maybe it was the Osoians. I forget which story series it was that had somebody down on the planet and actually had an encounter with either the Orm or the Osoians, and talking about the planet they lived on, and the descriptions were really great. But Kellogg. So obviously, if you are, Osoians, high gravity. There you go. Yep, because they're squat, and I remember them being furry and having like strong limbs or something. So, what was I going to say? So obviously, gameplay related to this, smuggling, totally smuggling. You might not be smuggling flow pets, but you could be smuggling other creatures, going down and trying to get samples in order to get these sort of things for collectors who are looking for them illicitly. Because obviously, as players, we're going to be able to, have fish tanks and pets and all that sort of stuff. And so it totally makes sense that NPCs will as well. And so there will be a market for those things. So that's one aspect of gameplay related that Zeiss brings to the table, as well as research. And I forget when I found it, but there's a Galactapedia article about research drones, which you have to have basically permission from the UEE to operate. And they specifically mention in the article using research drones to go down to protected planets like this, and do research, carry out research experiments or get to, do observations on things like the Orm or other species in order to, learn about them. Maybe take samples for scientific reasons. And so that's totally research and exploration gameplay right there, whether you're doing it legally or not. So let's keep going, read more about the Kellogg system. Kellogg 3, corrosive conditions. Kellogg 3 is the third planet from the sun of the Fair Chance Act protected Kellogg system, with a high-pressure atmosphere of carbon dioxide and a runaway greenhouse effect. Temperatures on Kellogg 3 are hotter than those on neighboring planet Zeiss. In 2911, a spacecraft containing 3 escapees from the prison quarterdeck. So that directly hints that you'll be able to, if you are imprisoned on quarterdeck, you will be able to potentially escape, but you'll also have to be doing bounty hunting missions in order to track down escapees. In 2011, a spacecraft containing 3 escapees from the prison quarterdeck located on Kellogg 6 briefly hid in the planet's dense yellow clouds during a pursuit from law enforcement. The ship sustained corrosion damage to its hull over time, which eventually forced it to emerge and led to its capture. So interesting. And also, that's a really good mention of gameplay for, it's, you might not have a reason on the planet to go down there for the monetary gain. But certain planets, like this one, would be suitable for, at least in the short term, sometimes longer, for you losing someone who is pursuing you. If you're a hauler, or a trader, or, who's being pursued by pirates, or if you have a bounty on your head and obviously you're being pursued by bounty hunters, you could, use planets like this in order to lose them, and they can't scan around the whole planet, and you can use the atmosphere or maybe emissions from the planet in order to mask your signal, and ultimately make your escape or hide until they lose interest and leave. Kellogg 4, of interest to several corporations. Kellogg 4 is a super-Earth in the Fair Chance Act protected Kellogg system and is the 4th planet from its sun. Early surveys of the planet indicated that it possesses copious mineral resources, but its location near Zeiss, Kellogg 2, has led to the UAE government to deny petitions to begin mining operations there. In 2950, a proposal to start a pilot mining program on Kellogg 4 that would utilize inmates of the nearby prison quarterdeck as a potential labor force was presented to the UAE Senate. Despite garnering strong support among members of the Universalist Party, it did not gain enough votes for final approval. Ghost said, and thus the conspiracy of UFOs is spread across the galaxy. What was that in reference to? I must have missed that. So this is actually interesting because it's something that came up in the elections back in 2020. One of the things that was, probes, gotcha, I see. Yep, totally makes sense. Yeah, we're just a protected sentient species. And occasionally aliens send research drones down here to take a look at us and get a closer look and take samples. Yeah. But one of the things that was something that some of the candidates campaigned on was loosening the restrictions of the Fair Chance Act. So that way, okay, we don't need to protect the whole system and make the whole system off limits. We can just make the planet that the sapient species is on, we can make that off limits. And so there's been a push for that because there's planets within these systems that have a lot of resources, and obviously, in the Kellogg system, it's like, well, we have a whole planet that is devoted to being a prison. Why can't we mine this planet over here? Obviously the sapient species can't see us, but then you run the risk of, more traffic coming in there, more people, being nearby, you run the risk of ships crashing, makes it harder and to monitor the traffic, in and around the area. So, there's an argument to both sides. But maybe we'll see some more traction on that in more political stuff within the Star Citizen lore in the future. But that also leads to a gameplay discussion. Early surveys of this planet, Kellogg 4, indicate that it possesses copious mineral resources. So, if you are looking to do some mining and extracting of resources without having to file for a mining claim and paying those fees, but you're willing to take the risk of being detected by UE Army patrols, you could sneak your way to Kellogg 4 and mine those resources on the surface. That could be something that could be potentially profitable depending on what's there, but risky. So, as well as the fact that, it's a very large system, so we don't know how far away this planet is from those jump points. So it's something to think about, though. The lore team's dropping these little hint bombs to say, oh yeah, you could go mining there, if you're willing to break the law, and it could be worth your while. So here is Zeiss. Here's Kellogg 3, which was that planet with the really hot corrosive atmosphere. And then here's Kellogg 4, a little bit farther out. It's outside the green band. Kellogg 5, a source of hydrogen. Kellogg 5 is the 5th planet from the sun of the Fairchance Act protected Kellogg system. A gas dwarf, it has a rocky core and a thick, expansive hydrogen-helium atmosphere, but does not have enough mass to classify as a gas giant. Resources from the planet are sometimes harvested and used to supply the prison on neighboring planet Kellogg 6. Pardon me. Talking so much gets my throat all dry. But only under close supervision from the UEE government. So they do, harvest the gases on the planet in order to, provide fuel and such for the operations of the prison on Kellogg 6. But it's closely monitored. Again, closely monitored when they do that. That doesn't mean that if you're mining on Kellogg 4 and you need to get some fuel, you might be able to go over there and do a little scooping. All right, Quarterdeck, prison planet. Oh gosh, and I always blank on the name of it. There is a I think it was one of those stories in Star Citizen where it's fiction within the fiction of Star Citizen, but it takes place on I believe it's supposed to take place on the Justice Star satellite, which is where they process inmates before taking them to Quarterdeck. And it's a really cool story where, it's actually pretty dark too. But I won't spoil it for you, but I'm going to have to look it up because I always forget the name, but it's one of my favorites. It was a really good one. A big, dramatic prison break, and there's like a psych ward that gets loose with all sorts of wildness, and there's Tavarin and pirates, and it's cool. So, Quarterdeck, Kellogg 6. Quarterdeck, Kellogg 6 is the 6th planet from the sun of the Fairchance Act protected Kellogg system. Named for the maximum security prison located on its surface, it is covered with ice and is inhospitable to human life outside environmentally controlled facilities. An antimatter processing plant located near the penitentiary is staffed by inmates of Quarterdeck, some of whom volunteer for the job in exchange for reduced sentences despite its dangerous and sometimes deadly conditions. In 2943, Senator Gara Veras of Low, Coral 3, proposed that the prison and the plant be decommissioned due to its harsh conditions and the track record of human rights violations. The proposal was defeated by a narrow margin, leading many political commentators to speculate that it will be resurrected in the future. Yeah, I don't know what to think about that. I don't know what they would do if they decommissioned Quarterdeck, and where what they might do with those inmates, and how they might replicate the antimatter processing. But yeah, it's something interesting to think about, because it's like, well, this prison has human rights violations, and it's like, yeah, that's pretty much a universal thing for prisons, for high security prisons with dangerous inmates. Like, you changing the location isn't going to change the outcome. That's an almost universal truth when it comes to prisons. But obviously, gameplay related, this Quarterdeck is a maximum security planet, or prison. It's not like Klesher, which is more like a county jail, where you go for short terms. If you are a space murder hobo or space terrorist, Klesher, or you're not going to end up in your local Klesher within the system that you're doing crime in. You will get, you might initially start there, but you're going to end up in a place like Quarterdeck for those really heinous crimes. And then, there might be a few other stops before that. There might be a few other places like Quarterdeck, but I do not think that you're going to end up in a workers jail like Klesher if you commit murder and have a substantial criminal record. So players who run around doing like that and play like that and play with very little consequences right now, when things like the criminality system and the law system become a lot more thorough, and the universe expands, you're not going to have such an easy time of getting out of Klesher and getting back to doing what you want, what you were doing. You're going to end up you're going to wake up in Quarterdeck, and you're going to have a much harder time escaping. You're going to have a much tougher sentence. You'll probably have NPCs who are very murdery. This is how they ramp up the escalation of force in order to take those sorts of players outside of their chosen toxic gameplay loop for periods of time. Pardon. Sorry. Disgusting. But yeah, I certainly don't think Quarterdeck is just going to be for NPCs. But obviously, there will be missions to transport inmates to Quarterdeck, whether you're a bounty hunter bringing them in, or you're like a cargo hauler who are hauling them as cargo. If you remember that mission with the Caterpillar with the prison pods, I expect to see those sorts of things, making trips to Quarterdeck to drop off inmates, or trips to the Justice Star satellite where they can be dropped off. But it makes for kind of an interesting loop if you are in, going in that direction, because, as far as I'm aware, the inmates get processed through the Justice Star satellite and then are transferred to Quarterdeck. And so that could be an interesting place where a escape, or liberation, whatever you want to call it, depending on who you are, could occur, is on the station of, the Justice Star satellite, or en route in between the two. There's a lot of different opportunities to make things interesting within that gameplay loop, rather than just waking up in Quarterdeck and now you have to do your time, or find a way to escape. But I could definitely see it being where it's a much more difficult escape than the one on Klesher, which a lot of people speed run, and it's really not that challenging. So the Justice Star satellite. So And I think that's the station, the monitoring station. I don't know why it isn't letting me click it. Or why nothing's popping up. But anyway, here's the that gas dwarf. And here is quarterdeck. And here's the Justice Star satellite space station, which is in the same orbit as quarterdeck. The Justice Star satellite is a space station in the Fairchance Act protected Kellogg system, located at one of the Lagrange points. There you go, makes sense. That way it just naturally follows Kellogg 6 around in its orbit. So located at one of the Lagrange points of Kellogg 6's orbit, it serves as the central processing center for new arrivals to the maximum security prison quarterdeck. It also hosts a UEE court to allow for swift trials and sentencing when bounty hunters directly deliver wanted criminals. So you can take that might be a thing that you as a bounty hunter, you could take your, for a lesser bounty payout, you could take your bounties to those law offices within Stanton, and then they have to transport them all the way. But you could instead take them all the way to the Justice Star satellite, or maybe you collect multiple bounties and you put them on a cargo ship after you got enough, and then you make the trip down there to make it worth your while, and you get a larger payment for delivering them directly to the Justice Star satellite. That could be something worth your while. But then you're also at risk of attack, where maybe NPCs or even player pirates could target you for in order to liberate their compatriots. So something I'd really be interested to see, and how that works, and see what the interior looks like. Patek Cohen. So this is a article about a person. So disappointed to have discovered the Kellogg system. Patek Cohen, 2786 through 2867, was a nav jumper most notable for his discovery of the Kellogg system in 2811. So he was only 25. Born on Campos, Ellis 4, Cohen began his career as a pilot for a private ferry service from Campos to neighboring planets Green, Ellis 3, and Noble, Ellis 5. He became interested in nav jumping after reading a biography on Antoine Lebec, and took on private training courses in navigation and detection in his spare time. It was his goal to eventually live in a system he discovered himself. After nearly a decade of searching, Cohen found a jump point to Kellogg, but was disappointed when the existence of the Orm civilization on Kellogg 2 came to light, and the system was placed under the Fair Chance Act, meaning that he could not reside there. He retired from nav jumping in 2839 when his autobiography, A Refuted Dream, became an unexpected bestseller.
Part of the crew, part of the ship.
Ah, Solus, thanks for the follow, buddy.
Part of the crew, part of the ship. Part of the crew, part of the...
Good to see you. Hope you're doing well. If you are watching and hanging out in chat, 07 Solus, and you are not familiar with who Solus is the content creator who is responsible for the Beyond the Verse podcast. So I highly recommend you go check it out. I think he's up to 10 episodes every Thursday night, but streams it live on YouTube, and then you can find the episodes on YouTube as well as the podcast form itself on different places where podcasts are found. But putting out really good content, and I forget the name of your org. If you want to drop it in chat, feel free. But also runs an organization in Star Citizen as well. And Solus is he's former Army, a former 18 Alpha, if I remember correctly, which is basically the officer in charge of an Army Special Forces unit. So pretty cool stuff. Solus is a new member of the Armchair Admirals and Generals team. And so I actually been meaning to send you a message because I wanted to pick your brain about an idea for an episode for July that I was going to talk to you and Sergeant Tickles about, because I think it'd be right up your alley. Soul provision. There we go. Yeah. So yes, that's the next episode for Armchair Admirals and Generals. I'm trying to get together, figure out a date with Night Cobb and Sergeant Tickles, because I wanted to talk more about components and subcomponents in the vein of talking about repair and maintenance, and planning around that for your ships, but also customization, because that's going to be a big part of what subcomponents do, and basically almost creating our own variants with the customization of components. Not only picking the components you want, but the subcomponents you want to do the job that you want to do or perform the way you want to perform. And it was kind of cool thinking about it, because I think about like Sergeant Tickles was I forget what his job title was, but basically he was a door gunner on a Air Force Pavehawk for like PJ pararescue teams, and so very familiar with the systems on a Pavehawk. I fly in a Blackhawk, and you look at the two aircraft, you're like, oh, it's the same thing, but it's not, because they have different components and subcomponents that are mission specific. And so I thought that was a really cool way to look at that. And as well, of course, Night Cobb, his whole job is around maintaining, a Navy submarine and planning around the maintenance cycles for that, to keep it in operation and, knowing those schedules. And so along that same vein, when we think about customizing our components and subcomponents for our ships to be able to do, tune them the way we want, and be able to, plan around the maintenance of those components so you don't end up in the middle of pyro, and your power plant is on the fritz. If you watch that design brief engineering, that's something that, can happen. Your components can fail if you don't maintain them and you don't plan around their life cycles. But that also plays into you as your character with your kit, because we're also going to be able to customize our armor and our suits in order to do different things. And who knows a lot about customization of kit for, mission specific, needs? Maybe an officer who led a unit of Army Special Forces, I don't know, that might be part of the planning of those sort of things. So, and obviously like the kit that I wear is different than the kit, that Sergeant Tickles wore, in his aircraft for their missions. And obviously, we have an officer, a former officer right here who knows all about, planning around missions and, setting that sort of stuff up. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You don't have standard kits, across a unit, and you have to be able to tailor your kit based off what you're going to be doing. And so, it's not just a matter of picking a different weapon. It's, your armor is going to have subcomponents. And so you'll want to, maybe this is your favorite armor, but you might want to kit it out with different subcomponents based off where you're going to be doing stuff. So that's the vein of the discussion for the July episode that I want to bring them on for after we do the June episode. And I'll be home in a couple of weeks. So I'll be working on making a lot of notes, but that's something that if you're into that sort of thing, stay tuned, and feel free to hop in my Discord if you've got suggestions or comments or things that you would like to hear us explore. But yeah, little tangent, but I was like, oh, I've got Solus here. We'll briefly talk about this. But yeah, so cool stuff. Oh, there we go. OB Station Pegasus. So actually, another interesting thing, because we have Solus here, and I need to talk to Paul about this, because he's mentioned it a couple times, and we've been trying to figure out when we're going to do it. But Paul, yeah, I got 11 more days until I get to go home, Solus. 11 more days. But so, Solus is former Army, and I'm in the Army National Guard right now doing Army stuff literally, today. And then Atira Kell is an active Army officer as well. And so Paul, the Astropub, Paul Shelley, wanted to do a Captain's Table episode, or no, he wanted to do a Lore Citizen, or maybe it was a Captain's Table. Maybe it was both. about the UE Army and how we can go about expanding the lore and the role, and the that would be a good way to put it. The Army needs some love in the Star Citizen universe. And so talking about the lore for the Army, talking about their mission, how that mission could be expanded, how CIG could go to further the lore and the mission for the UE Army. And obviously one of the only things we know about them is that they man the stations that are used to observe and protect the Fair Chance Act protected planets and the species on them, among other things. So, yeah, they practically don't exist in most of the lore. Like, the UE Navy has this much lore, and the Marines have this much lore, and the Army is way down here. And really, like, there's only a couple mentions and a few battles, as far as like the, especially like the Devaran War, or wars, sorry. And then, of course, here in the Galactapedia, every time they mention a Fair Chance Act system, each one of those systems has a station that is manned by the Army, and they talk about the Army conducting patrols within the system and basically, being the gatekeepers of the system. And that's about it. And obviously there could be a whole lot more to it, but CIG hasn't explored it at all. Sola says, if they mention a Coast Guard, I'm going to lose my shit. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, there's so many great ways that they could expand upon that. So I'm really, obviously I love the lore for the UE Marines and the Navy. I think it's good reading, and I hope that we get equivalent good reading in regards to the UE Army. So OB Station Pegasus is a UEE outpost located in the Fair Chance Act protected Kellogg system, situated at a Lagrange point in the orbit of Kellogg 6. Yeah. Oh, wait, no, Lagrange. Yeah, one of the interior Lagrange points. So here's Kellogg 6 down here. So you would have a Lagrange point that would be, here's one at the trailing, if it's orbiting like this, you'd have a Lagrange point at the trailing edge, you'd have a Lagrange point at the leading edge, you'd have a Lagrange point out here where the gravitational pull between the planet and here is neutral. You'd have another one somewhere in here, and then another one on the opposite side of the star from the planet, where the gravity, the gravitational pull is neutralized. So let's zoom in here. Okay, so here is the OB station. So it's probably on an orbit similar to Zeiss, but is actually a Lagrange point for Kellogg 6. So it might not be in the perfectly right position based off the star map, but based off the way it reads, that's one of the and I forget how they number them. They number them all the same. But if it's a Lagrange point for Kellogg 6, it would probably be the one that's opposite the star, on the other side of the star from Kellogg 6, but nearer to the star. So, let's see. It was created to monitor the planet Zeiss, Kellogg 2, and protect the developing Orm civilization that resides there from outside influence. Its staff is a mix of military personnel and scientists engaged in long-term observations of the Orm. So these stations, obviously, you're going to have to, or there will be contracts to bring supplies to the station. It's probably a pretty large station, especially if that's where the UE Army is operating their patrols out of it. So they have to service the ships there, maintain them, fuel them, arm them, what have you. You've got supplies for taking care of the people who are living on the station, probably research materials that need to be brought there for the scientists as well. If you have the right reputation, you could probably go there to get a mission to then go down, take your research drones down to the surface of Zeiss. That's probably where you would get, one of the places you might get those missions. If you have the right reputation with the Army, you might be able to get missions from them to go on patrols within the system, or to track down, hey, we had, maybe there's some, you go here and then you hear from them that, hey, we've had some signals over here in this area of the system. We want you to go investigate. We think that there could be like poachers or something like that there. Yeah, and those would be like mercenary type missions that you could take. So lots of interesting potential for going to these different stations. I think that you could have some pretty good gameplay interacting with these stations in the Fair Chance Act systems. Ghost 1800 says, is this order for 50 SCU of liquor legit? Oh wait, how much? Be right back. Yeah. Probably they get their monthly booze ration or whatever. But yeah, I could definitely see some interesting variety coming from being in these systems, and it's things that could be potentially lucrative, because I don't think the bulk of players will consider these sorts of things other than just I'm going to go visit it once and see what there is to see, and then after that not pursue it. But if there's less competition for these missions, it could be lucrative for you, and the reputation gains from you might only be able to get the reputation you need with these different research organizations or universities by doing these missions, and so you have to go to these places to get that rep to do the things that you want to do. Or maybe there's benefit to having really good rep with the Army, and this is one of the best places to build up that rep. We don't know yet. But just thinking outside the box. So let's see. That was... Oh, okay. Whoops. I accidentally skipped over that one. So Daniela Argan. Let's see. Danielle Argan, 2762 to 2838, was a UEE senator of Locke, Idris 4, from 2801 to 2827. Yeah, the whole rep thing really is a really great way in order to diversify the gameplay, but also incentivize people to explore the verse rather than just go to areas where you just go there. You're doing the same routes for moving cargo. You're taking the same bounties in a certain area. It's like, you've gotten all the rep you can from me. You can continue to do jobs, but it's the law of diminishing returns. But if you move on to somewhere else, in a different organization, that's where you can continue to grow that that reputation. I could see that, especially as like a bounty hunter or a mercenary. Having high rep with multiple organizations leads to a cumulatively higher rep within like a mercenaries guild, that you can't get by just grinding with one organization. You have to have good rep with multiple organizations batting for you in order to get to that next level within the mercenary guild. That's a way that I might do it if it was up to me. Let's see. So, first elected under a platform of revitalizing the economy, she spearheaded a series of tax breaks for first-time business owners and instituted a hiring program that decreased Locke's overall unemployment rate. In 2815, she presented a proposal to the UE Senate outlining a detailed plan to construct a maximum security prison and an antimatter processing plant on Kellogg 6. She argued that the heavy guard presence would serve as an early warning system against Vandal incursions through the then newly discovered jump points to Virgil and Vector without costing additional military resources. And the plant would generate revenue and provide the UE with a steady stream of antimatter. A steady stream of antimatter. So it makes me wonder what, other than for antimatter torpedoes, which we've heard about before in the lore, what else does the UE use antimatter for? I know we've read about it where there are antimatter reactors. And is that the, one of the more prominent, or, I guess prominent, is that one of the more, are antimatter reactors one of the more prominent types of reactors used, in ships and powering cities and stuff like that? What all is antimatter used for, in the verse of Star Citizen, and why do we need that steady stream of it? Let's see. Yeah, Sola says they'll need to increase the server capacity from 150 before they launch 4.0 or Pyro, or you'll never see another player. Yeah, it can go. I've seen it up to 144. I don't think I've ever seen it above. I don't think I've ever seen 150 or higher. I think with the plans that they originally had for breaking up a server and having 4 nodes within a server mesh. Could get us there by being able to divide it up into essentially fourths, since we're already at 100 plus. So we'll just have to see how efficient they can make it. The big thing is how quickly can they transition from from their initial static plan to the dynamic plan, because the dynamic plan is what will make it so that they can really ramp up the server populations. The Bengal operates off of Vandal tiers. Yes, weaponizing Vandal tiers. I don't know how we go about milking those tiers, but I'm curious to find out. That's a medical procedure I want to know all about. Yeah, let's see how server meshing goes. How bad could it get? Mentally blocks out 318. I do think that the 4.0 will be less painful than 318. Just because of server meshing being the less difficult technological aspect from what they have said, and having fewer new services implemented. But we don't know. Remains to be seen. I'm just hoping for a stable 319.1 at this point by the time I get home to play Star Citizen. It's been months, so yeah. That's all I want. I've been watching everybody's pain remotely, and I've been building up my empathy for the community because I haven't been able to participate in the mutual suffering being gone for several months. So I'm looking forward to being back a part of the club and engaging in mutual suffering together. Yeah, I mean, from me watching streamers, 319 looked like it was doing good up until Invictus Launch Week. Invictus Launch Week exposed a lot of holes within the systems, and hopefully they're doing getting those the majority of the way patched up. But I'm hopeful for 319.1, especially because the summer is traditionally a bit of a lull in concurrency in the player base, and so it's traditionally a lot more stable due to that. And so I'm hoping that I can get a lot of playtime in the summer in the evenings and such. So, let's see. Yeah, so she argued that the heavy guard presence would serve as an early warning system against Vandal incursions through the then newly discovered jump points to Virgil and Vector without costing additional military resources, and the plan would generate revenue and provide the UE with a steady stream of antimatter. Her plan was approved. During her third term, Argon was arrested by the advocacy, oh no, on charges of accepting bribes, and was forced to resign. After a trial, she was fined for her actions. Yeah, just a fine, and went on to become a private business consultant. How typical. In 2838, she was found dead in a hotel room on Asura, Farum 3, having suffered multiple stab wounds. Her murder remains unsolved. Whoa, that is dark and very satisfying. Yeah, to hear that she was arrested for bribery and got off with just paying fines, and then went into becoming a consultant, but was eventually murdered. I mean, comeuppance. Don't be a scumbag. Don't abuse your power and influence. But dang, yeah. I wonder if that's something that we could ever investigate. So the Osiris system. Okay, so we need to back out of. Let's see. Is it going to let me? Okay, we'll load it back up again. Let's see if it'll let me load it without doing it in... Here, give me 1 second. I have to reload. God, I can't wait till they fix the star map and get it working again. Bingo. Cool. All right, so now we're going to read about the Osiris system. And so let's open that first. It's interesting that we're getting 2 Fair Chance Act protected systems in one lore dump. Now, there's not a lot of Fair Chance Act protected systems, which is why I find it kind of interesting that they're doing 2 of the like 4, I think, total. Because there's Oso, Kellogg, Osiris, and then the other one doesn't have a developing species, but it's the one where the system itself is forming. It's like it's like a stellar nebula system. I can't remember what it's called, but it's actually not far from Kellogg and Oso. Like, it's in that same neck of the woods. Oh, okay. They do have some fixes to the ASOP terminals coming in 3.19.1. Because, yeah, it's just been nuts seeing everybody's posts and videos about how those are just absolutely, shit in the bed, quite literally. Like, yeah, it's, bad enough when there are, it's a small segment of the population at this point now of players who, whose accounts are still bricked and they're, the customer service is slowly making their way through those. But, it's a point of contention, and one thing that I do have a significant critique for CIG is that their customer service team, whether it's just a lack of resources because the company isn't big enough, and they don't have enough customer service people who can work on these things, or it's not as much of a priority. I don't know what it is, but they need to fix it, because having people who have paid for the game and have been going for weeks or even months where they can't play because their account is bricked and it's taking that long to fix them, like, to me, that's unacceptable. But, the fact that the people who can play, a lot of the times you can't leave the damn city that you're on because the ASOP terminals are bricked, or the station, without, somebody, playing Uber for you, these fixes can't come soon enough for everybody. Anyway, Osiris system. So, let's find it on the map. So we were just over, I think it's so here's Kellogg, and here's Oso. I think it's the Callus system. Callus is the one that's the developing system that's like an all nebula. But yeah, so here's Kellogg over here. Here's Oso, where the Osoians are. And here's Callus, and then another developing system is Osiris. Oh, Genesis is too? I don't remember why Genesis is. But here's Osiris over here, which is has 3 large jump points. One going to the Kayukya, is the Xi'an way of saying it. I guess we say Indra. I'm not sure, but it's also connected to the Baker system and the Goss system. Is Oso the bone planet? I don't know what you mean by bone planet. Are you talking about the system with Campos and that big Camposi skull thing? Kind of reminds me of the from the Mandalorians. Oso is bone in Spanish. Wondering if it has. Oh, interesting. I did not know that. I guess I should have known that since I took 3 years of Spanish, but it's been a while. But yeah, so here's the Osiris system. So whereas Kellogg is 33 AU, Osiris down here is actually one of the ones that changed in size. And so it is actually only 2 AU. That's weird. It's not done right. That is not right. For some reason, this is not correct. I'll have to fix that. So the old size was 4. The new size should be 2. And so it should be 2 AU. I wonder how my formula got screwed up. Oh, well, I can just put this column here. Oops. Cut. Paste. And delete column. Nope, that's wrong. Oh well, I'll fix it later. Anyway, yeah, so Osiris is a very small system. It's only 2 AU. So, the Osiris system is a protected planetary system that consists of a K-type main sequence star, a terrestrial planet, a gas giant, and an asteroid belt. Discovered in 2788, it became the first system to be protected. Oh, my AC just kicked on. I apologize if you can hear the AC in the background. I don't think it's too loud. If it's too loud and it's distracting, I can turn it off. I had just turned the temperature up a little bit. A gas giant and an asteroid belt. Discovered in 2788, it became the first system to be protected under the Fair Chance Act. It was the first one. When detailed surveys, delayed by the events of the anti-Mezzo Revolution, finally concluded in 2799, so 11 years later, and revealed a complex biosphere beneath the cloud cover of Osiris-1, later nicknamed Etos. OB Station Kobold, tasked with observing and protecting the developing life on Etos, sits in one of the planet's Lagrange points. I can't hear it over my AC here. Pardon me. So, let's read more about the Osiris system, but first let's get inside of it. Osiris. Alrighty. So let's zoom out. Here's the star. Here's the green band. I never know what this line outside of the green band is before it gets into this blue area. I'd like to have Sherry explain visually what that is supposed to represent. So here's Etos, where the the developing planet, and here's the OB Station Kobold, which is in one of the Lagrange points for that planet. We have a asteroid belt Alpha right here. All the jump points are within the green band radius, although one of them is way up here. That's one of the things I always like to look at when I'm in a system. Bring myself down to the ecliptic to see where the jump points are relevant to the ecliptic, because that changes how far away they are from planets and stuff by a lot. And then here's Osiris 2 out here, which is the gas giant. So, Etos. Etos is the first planet from the Sun of the Fair Chance Act protected Osiris system. Located on the innermost edge of the green band, it has a natural oxygen-nitrogen atmosphere and is inhabited by countless species, one of which, the Fair's ape, shows strong evidence of sapience. Nearly all the animals on Etos live underground. Oh, interesting. To live underground in an extensive cave system that reaches down to the planet's mantle. Wow, that's huge. While travel to the planet is prohibited, research teams are occasionally dispatched there to observe life in the caves. How cool would it be to have enough reputation with one of these research organizations or universities or something like that, where you could be dispatched to go do one of these away missions on a protected planet like Etos or Zeiss, in order to observe the life on these planets. Because that's what I think it's going to come down to is you have to show that you have to work your way up reputation wise with multiple different organizations, but that kind of mission would be that's like the creme de la creme of being of science and exploration gameplay, is going down to a protected planet in order to observe species and getting scans of them and taking samples and doing so. Maybe you have to witness them doing certain behaviors that they only do every so often in order to record that behavior, and it gets upload it or whatever, and that's part of the contract. Maybe there's predatory species that you have to watch out for, and dangerous weather and such. A lot of really amazing potential for really cool gameplay on these developing planets. What's interesting though is they didn't include the species articles. So we'll read those at the end. But let's finish getting through Osiris. So yeah, definitely an interesting planet because it's within the green band, has a natural oxygen-nitrogen atmosphere, has lots of species on the planet, including a one with potential sapience, but it doesn't tell you about what the surface of the planet is like and why they live underground. And so that's something that I'd be interested to hear about. Why they live underground in these caverns, but if there's anything that's the CIG team can do is they can make some damn caves, and so it'll be really interesting to see what these caverns, these massive cavern networks look like, and what exploring those would be like in the game. So let's see. Pardon me. OB Station Kobold. So, OB Station Kobold is an observation platform located in the protected Osiris system. Situated in one of the Lagrange points of Etos, its mixture of scientific and military personnel are tasked with studying and protecting the planet's developing inhabitants. In 2939, so only 14 years ago, the UEE military apprehended a smuggler who had captured a clutch of 5 adolescent Fares apes. The animals were deemed too injured to be returned to their planet and were rehabilitated aboard the station, where they continue to live and be studied. So that could be, again, interesting gameplay. Is have the opportunity, due to your reputation, to go to the station and observe, these different these apes, and maybe that's part of your trek to being able to go down to the planet. You have to go and observe the apes, and monitor their different behaviors or something like that, in order to say, hey, I have I'm credentialed, or I'm capable of being able to go down and do these exploration minutes down to the planet, or missions down to the planet's surface. So yeah, another UE military station that's going to probably manned and defended by the UE Army, but also going to have significant logistical needs, in terms of bringing. Oops, I accidentally muted my microphone. As far as generic gameplay, but of course, again, there's the mercenary and/or bounty hunter jobs of hunting down would-be smugglers who are trying to get down to the surface and do these sorts of things. That's a not too subtle hint that these sorts of things are going to be occurring within the game, and you could potentially be contracted to apprehend these smugglers and hunt them down, and return these species to the OB stations. So, Osiris Belt Alpha, the Fairchance Act persecuted asteroid belt. Interesting. The Osiris Belt Alpha is an asteroid belt in the Fairchance Act protected Osiris system, one of the densest belts so far discovered. That's interesting. It experiences frequent collisions between asteroids, creating fields of debris that contribute to the already hazardous travel conditions. A catastrophic collision could endanger the developing life on Etos Osiris-1. The UE military patrols the area to monitor for and divert or destroy any rogue asteroids that may become an issue. So, that's simple scanning missions, scanning for asteroids that could be knocked out of orbit and pushed towards the planet. You might have to go destroy those asteroids. Maybe, if you have enough reputation, you could instead use your SRVs to tractor them back into orbit or tractor them into a position to be mined instead. I don't think it's just a filler lore that says the UE army has Polarises that go around and scan for asteroids that could be a problem and then blow them up with antimatter torpedoes. Maybe it's fun. Maybe it's a good place to get target practice. If you're a new Polaris captain or something. Let's see. So Osiris 2, the first not technically but adjacently Fair Chance Act protected planet. Okay. Sounds like something Jared would say, Jared Huckabee. Osiris 2 is the second planet from the sun of the Fair Chance Act protected Osiris system. Although access to the system is limited by the FCA, the UAE government has allowed the placement of multiple fuel refineries to help offset the cost of the long-term observation program aboard OB Station Cobalt. An outbreak of smuggling incidents starting in 2931 that utilize these platforms as launching points has resulted in increasingly negative press over their presence. So if you're a smuggler and that's the kind of gameplay that you're looking for, I could see lots of potential for smuggling into these Fair Chance Act systems. Not only more lower tier smuggling, like bringing illicit goods to these soldiers and researchers on these stations who are maybe in need of some after hours entertainment, but also for trying to smuggle off these species on these Fair Chance Act protected planets. And so if you're but this also gives you a hint if you're a mercenary or a bounty hunter for where you might be lying in wait for potential smugglers within the system. Launching off from these from the fuel refinery platforms within the gas giant. So I'm also really looking forward to seeing, because there are a whole bunch of mentions of fuel refineries, in the atmosphere of gas giants. And so I'm looking forward to seeing how CIG implements those and what they end up looking like, how they differ from, just Orison. In construction, where they are in the depth of the atmosphere, how they function. I think that's another avenue for CIG to differentiate their constructions by making the space stations very different from the fuel refinery stations at the gas giants, and how those operations end up working. Oh no, we just had a commercial. Okay, I'll wait. We're going to set up for Noah Traeger. Let's see. Oh, the Orison commercial. Visit Orison. So, Noah Traeger. 2759 through 2848 was a UEE Navy mechanic and engineer most notable for their discovery of the Osiris system in 2788. Oh, interesting. They joined the UEE Navy in 2782, so 23 years old, where they repaired damaged spacecraft aboard multiple Capital-class starships. While on shore leave in the Gauss system, Traeger opted out of enjoying the beach and instead worked on a broken scanner. When they went out to test it, they at first thought that their repairs had failed until they traced the signal and discovered a previously unknown jump point. Traeger accepted an honorable discharge in 2808, after which they used the reward money from their discovery to open a ship repair shop on Castle, Gauss 2. Let's see. So, lived to be 99. Not all that old, but, it was also during the time of the Measures still. That's like, I love the individual stories for how star systems are discovered, because sometimes it's nav jumpers who are out looking for them, and sometimes it's just random things like this. They were just a totally happen chance when they were working on repairing a broken scanner, and they had to take it out and test it, and happened upon a undiscovered jump point, which led to a Fair Chance Act system. And the first one at that. Antoine Lebec discovered the Null system. The Null system is one of my favorite systems. Out of all the systems that I want to visit and probably primarily operate out of, Null is one of the most prominent ones that I'm really interested in. Null, Oberon, and Tyrol. Pardon me. Antoine Lebec, 2258 through 2307 ? Was a nav jumper, most notable for his discovery of the Null system in 2290. Born on Earth, Sol 3, he was inspired to become an explorer after Nick Croshaw discovered the Croshaw system in 2271. He completed pilot training in 2277, but wasn't able to afford his own spacecraft until 2282. When he won a land and mineral rights lottery to a plot on Angeli, Croshaw 2, that sat on a natural vein of copper. This source of revenue enabled him to purchase a ship and become a full-time nav jumper. Oh, nice. How great is that? When he discovered the Null jump point, he reported that he had found Null during his initial visit there, thus giving the system its name. He disappeared while investigating the outskirts of Null in 2307. Oh. Interesting. Wondered how that happened. Historians speculate that he may have perished while attempting to navigate the Null Caliban jump point that would later be discovered by Ashley Gahn. And disappeared. Never found. How cool would it be to be able to, track down, where Antoine Lebec was searching, or potentially, may have navigated the jump point, and end up finding the remains of Antoine Lebec and his ship, 646 years later. I mean, there are a lot of stories like this where people have gone missing within the Star Citizen lore, and I think that'd be really cool to have the opportunity to look for clues and to find clues towards their whereabouts and have those things be published within, on Spectrum in game as part of like news, and to have that be your sort of claim to fame. It doesn't, it might get you a little bit of reputation gain or something like that, but just fun gameplay and incentive to explore and scan and check out different areas, because it's something that you're interested in. I want to solve the mystery of the disappearance of Antoine Lebec. Juliet Maupin, inadvertent founder of Apocalypse Arms. Pardon me. Juliet Maupin, 2747 through 2862, was a weapons and scanner engineer. She began her career at Aegis Dynamics as a machinist in 2766, eventually transferring to the ship's team on Sestilis Davian 2 in 2772. There she worked her way up to lead engineer and led the team responsible for the 2783 revamp of the Retaliator bomber. Following that success, she was enlisted by the UE military to produce a new line of powerful and advanced weapons for the Mezzer government. Maupin fled with her family to the Corel system after the events of the anti-Mezzer revolution for fear of being associated with the former regime. A crate of Maupin's prototypes that never made it to the Killian system for testing was discovered in a Sestilis warehouse in 2911 by Dalton Colabello, who went on to use them as the basis for the debut line of weapons for his new company, Apocalypse Arms. Man, that's an interesting way to go about starting your company. Finding a crate of long lost weapons in a warehouse that had been sitting there for at least 150, probably 100 plus years, because she died in 2862. And yeah, during the Meso regime is when she left. So who knows how long that crate had been there, and he's just like, oh, what's in this box? Look at these, Yeah, Scourge Railgun is a product of the Meso era, for sure. So Dalton Colabello, so the guy who found that crate, Dalton Colabello, 2858, is the founder and CEO of Apocalypse Arms. Still CEO. He was born in 2858. He is 95 years old. Dang. Born on Borea, Magnus III, to a low-income family, Colabello joined his uncle's contracting company upon attaining his equivalency. He broke off and founded his own construction business in 2884, eventually becoming a millionaire in 2887 when he renovated a series of warehouses on behalf of Drake Interplanetary. North End Trooper 07, good to see you, bud. How you doing? It looked like the last or most recent Bar Citizen Boise was a big success. Really wish I could be there, but looking forward to the next one when I finally get home. In 2911, his antique weapon collecting hobby led him to a crate of ship weapon prototypes found on Sestilis Davian II with unknown origins. Captivated by their unique design and potential power, he began a long investigation. Pardon me. Boy, that was a big dad sneeze. He began a long investigation that eventually led him to the great-granddaughter of Juliet Maupin, a former Aegis Dynamics engineer who had developed the armaments under contract from the Meso regime. Colabello purchased the original design documents and production rights from the family and used Maupin's work as the basis for a debut line of weapons for his new company, Apocalypse Arms, which he founded in 2913. So they've only been around for 40 years. It's quite an interesting way to go about starting an arms company, but pretty cool. Gesundheit. Northern Trooper says, it was fun, 5 hours of hanging out. Wish you were there, but next one should be around Foundations Festival. Oh, cool. I will have to make sure that ends up on my calendar, and I can hopefully make it. Got to start a new job on July 10th. So North End Trooper lives in Boise. We've actually met in person. Met in person more than once, actually. I think now. We have a small Bar Citizen Boise group that has gotten together multiple times. North End Trooper, you're probably familiar with Air St. Luke's, but that's who I'm going to be starting working for on July 10th. And my wife actually just had her last day with them the other day. So yeah, I'm finally get to come home in 11 days, and then I've got 3 weeks of time at home with the family and a big camping trip out to the Oregon coast, and then get to start a new job in July. So looking forward to it. At Air St. Luke's, not at downtown, not in the hospital. So flying with them. So cool article on Dalton Colabello and the Juliet Maupin and the history of Apocalypse Arms. But before we shut down for the evening, because I do have to get to bed, I got a really early morning again for training. Let's read briefly about the Orm and the Fairies apes, which are the two sapient species on Zeiss in the Kellogg system, and then the Fairies ape is on forget the name of the planet that they live on in the Osiris system, Etos. So the Orm are a developing civilization indigenous to the northern polar region of Zeiss, Kellogg 2, capable of creating tools, hunting, and building shelter. Xenoanthropologists estimate that it will be 10 or more millennia before they are capable of spaceflight. Study of the Orm is restricted to observational research only under the Fair Chance Act. So interesting that they don't have a description of what they look like. I can't remember if there is a description of what they look like in the original Kellogg Star System comlink. I'd have to look it up. Not going to do that right now. But if there isn't one, that gives a lot of freedom for the I guess it'd be the character team, in terms of developing the Orm and what they look like, how they move, what their behaviors are. So it'll be really interesting to see how they develop in the future. And of course, they could always retcon it too if they had written something in the past. But a pretty short article, but it also leaves a lot of room for them to expand upon it later. The I'm guessing Fair is a person who is named after. The Fair's ape is a human-like primate indigenous to Ethos Osiris-1, a nocturnal animal. The ape spends its days sleeping in caves or under self-created dwellings, and its nights foraging for fruit, seeds, leaves, and other plant-based foods. So that suggests that while they do live in the caves, that they do exist out on the surface of the planet, and along with, and there are plants that are likely on the surface, and potentially other animals. Biologists believe that it has the potential to develop higher thinking thanks to its use of tools and practice of constructing shelter. It is largely due to the presence of Fair's ape that Ethos is under the protection of the Fair Chance Act. Very cool. Really interested to see how the character team ends up bringing these sapient species to life. These two that we just read about, as well as the Osoians in the Oso system, which is actually very close to Stanton and Pyro. But yeah, lots of interesting lore from the Galactapedia update for May. Looking forward, as always, to the next one here at the end of June. I just want to say thank you, everyone, for joining me this evening. We've got over a dozen people hanging out live in chat and listening in. So I just want to say I appreciate you guys for being a part of this little exploration of the lore, and for hanging out in chat and being a part of the community. I appreciate all of you guys. And again, if you're not a member of my Discord, I always encourage you to join the Discord, be a part of the conversation. Lots of like-minded individuals in there already. We get together and play games, not just Star Citizen, on a pretty frequent basis. Been playing Starship Troopers Extermination because it runs on my laptop quite a bit recently with members of the community. So if you're interested in that, hop in the Discord and join us sometime. If you missed the podcast on Saturday, the full version, or the full podcast, is up on my YouTube channel right now. And then the individual segments, both on the roadmap roundups for the May 17th and the 31st, as well as on part 1 of component therapy, the spectrum pulse we did. Those will be dropping tomorrow and on the 8th on my YouTube. And then this next weekend, Nazarus and I will be going over the monthly reports that are coming out on Wednesday, so on June 7th. And if you missed part of this, this will be up on my YouTube on the 10th. And then hoping to, let's see, calendar real quick. Sorry. So yeah, this weekend, either the 10th or the 11th is when we'll do the monthly reports. And then it might not be the weekend of the 17th or the 18th because I get home on the 16th, and my wife will probably want my attention at that point in time. But before we leave for camping on the 23rd, I'm hoping that Nazarus and I can do another episode of Pathfinders with the roadmap roundup from the 14th, as well as part 2 of component therapy, the Spectrum Pulse. And then hopefully as well be able to record that episode of Armchair Admirals and Generals for June, like I talked about earlier. So stay tuned for news on that. And if you have feedback or ideas for those or suggestions, I'd love to hear them. Solus, good to see you back. Oh, no worries, dude. I totally understand the picking up the kid thing. I'm looking forward to doing that again myself. But I gotta call it an evening. Again, thank you so much for hanging out and exploring the lore with me, and I will talk to you guys soon. 07, have a good night. Oh, wait, don't leave. Should I raid somebody? Who do we raid? Let's see. I always forget about doing that. I'm a bad streamer. I feel bad about forgetting to raid someone else. Let's see. And how do I do? I have to do this on my tablet because otherwise I have to open it up on my computer.
What? Did we just become best friends? Yep.
Ah, Blizzrad sub. Thank you so much. Let's see. There we go. And stream manager. There we go. Raid channel. Zero State is. Looks like Zero State's playing Star Citizen. Marcus the Way is watching some videos from way back when. Oh, StackUp.org is about to start playing Diablo 4, doing some Druid leveling. We're gonna raid StackUp.org because we. This is a charity podcast for them. We didn't just become best friends. No, we have been friends, Blizzrad, even though I tolerate you. All right, rating Stack Up. So thanks again so much for hanging out, guys. Love your faces, and we'll talk more soon. Cheers.